Okay, we'll make a start. So apologies again for the late start. That won't happen again. Well, no, it might happen again, but not for the same reasons. Okay, so we're going to start this module looking at the mighty bit. Okay, so you may have heard that in computer systems, all of the information is stored in bits, and a bit can have one of two states. So it can be up or down, it can be on or off, it can be 0 or 1, it can be blue or green, however you want to look at it, and have it be charged or not charged. It can be polarized one way or another, but a bit has one of two states. And the bits form the foundation of computer memory and of our transmission schemes. Most of the time, we're going to be visualizing sending data from A to B. So you have a message or you have a picture and you have it here and you want to send it so that the person has it over there. Now, in actual fact, very often the channel over which we're transmitting is just a storage device. Really, you're sending the message to the hard disk and you're sending it to yourself in the future or something. Like, it's easier to visualize sending a message from A to B and transmitting it, but that's the same as, you know, whether you're storing it to take it back later. It doesn't really matter. But we'll visualize it as transmitting a message. So computers store information in bits, and each bit is either a 0 or a 1. By convention, we say 0 or 1, but it could be anything. That's just how we like to do it. Now, so a bit can indicate if something is on or off. So if you wanted to know if that projector was on or off, you could express that piece of information using a bit. So you might say, well, if the bit is 0, then the projector is on. And if the bit is 1, that means the projector is off. Or you could do it the other way around. And that's a really, really important point. You could do it completely the other way around. You could say, well, if the bit is 1, that means the projector is on. And if the bit is 0, that means the projector is off. Bits don't mean anything by themselves. Now, what this module is about is how we take a bunch of bits, a sequence of bits, and assign a meaning to them. We have schemes and techniques developed over years for converting a message into a sequence of bits so that when it gets to the other end, it can be decoded. We can do the same with images. We can do the same with sound. We can do the same with movies. So that's what this module is about, how we organize bits to put meaning on them. But that meaning is completely arbitrary. We just make it up, and then we agree that that's how we're going to do it. So a bit can express one of two states. What they mean, that's up to us. So if you've seen lots of American movies, you know that a sock on the door means something, and if there's no sock on the door, it's okay to come in. And if the sock is on the door, you can imagine what's going on inside in the room. Okay? But, you know, the sock doesn't by itself mean any, socks don't mean anything. Bit on the door doesn't mean anything. It's just an agreement that has been made, typically by two guys who share a room in the dorm, that the sock on the door is going to mean something. So sock on the door means something, no sock on the door means something else. The meaning of the bit is assigned somewhere else. Similarly, if you in a radio station, if the red light is on, that means we're actually live on air, so don't barge in the door looking to know the latest scores of the match or whatever. And if the light is off, that means you can walk in and chat away. Again, that's just a convention. The bit is 1 or 0, and we decide what it means. In ancient Rome, thumbs up meant something, thumbs down meant something else. Again, a convention there. Okay, thumbs up, the gladiator was saved. Thumbs down, tough luck. Right? So the meaning of a bit is assigned outside of the bit itself. Now, with one bit, you can have two possible states. But with 2 bits, you can do more. So if you think about how many bits would we need to describe the state of a traffic light? But with 2 bits, you could do that. Depending on where you are. Some people, in some cultures, traffic light either says red or it doesn't. In French, they're called feu rouge. Green, amber, whatever. I have to stop or I don't. Might as well be 1 bit. Okay? Here in Ireland, we have 3 states of a traffic light. We have red, amber, and green. So we need a pair of bits to do that. We need 2 bits to do that. So if we were transmitting somewhere or storing somewhere the state of the traffic light, we would need 2 bits to do that. So we might say if it's 0, 0, that'll be red. If it's 0, 1, that'll be amber. And if it's 1, 0, that could be green. Or we might do some other way. One system of mapping the bits is as good as the next. So I said here 0, 0, let's call that red. 0, 1, let's call that amber. 1, 0, we let that be green. And 1, 1, we haven't assigned anything to that. We could do it any number of ways. It's totally arbitrary. And that's a really important point. People are always going on, oh, that means something, 0 means off, 1 means on. But actually, the bit is in one state or another. The meaning is assigned somewhere else by convention, or very often in some standard that we all agree on. So we could have said, well, we'll leave 0, 0 empty. 0, 1 is green, 1, 0 is amber, and 1, 1 is red. We could do that too. That's just as good. And this is also just as good. We could make 0, 0 green. 0, 1, we won't say anything about that. 1, 0 could store amber, and 1, 1 will tell us that the light is red. So any table of mappings from bits to the meaning is as good as the next. Now, we do need 2 bits. Like, we can't get away with just 1, because we could store green and one other thing. Maybe it could be green and red. Then we've no way to store amber. So we do need 2 bits to get this done. There's another way. 0, 0 could be red. 0, 1 could be nothing. 1, 0 could be amber. 1, 1 could be green. Whatever. So with 2 bits, it's possible to have 4 different combinations. You can have, with 2 bits, you can have 4 different things. You can have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. So how many bits would we need to give each student in a class a unique code? Well, it would depend how many there are. So let's say there are 20 students in the class. How many bits would we need to give each one their own unique code? Let's say I couldn't be asked learning your names. I just want you to be 0, 0, 0, you 0, 0, 1, you 1, 0, 0, 1, be quiet. If I wanted to do that, how many bits would we need? Well, would 4 be enough? If we had 4, we could go from 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, all the way up to 1, 1, 1, 1. But we'd run out. With 4 bits, we'd have none for Ryan, Mar, Lisa, and Carl. You see there, each student has a unique 4-bit code. There's no code is repeated. So each one has their own unique code. So 1010, that's Abe's code, and no one else has that code. To give everyone their own code, you can only go to 16 with 4 bits. You can only have 16 different codes. With 20, we need to use 5 bits. So now with 5 bits, now everyone can get their own code. So depending on how many different things you need to represent, you may need some more bits. In fact, in general, if you have n bits, you can represent 2 to the power of n different things. So if you wanted to give every DVD you had in the house its own unique code, well, the number of bits you'd need to use would depend on how many DVDs you have. If you want to give each one of your shirts a binary code, well, the number of bits you'd need so that each one would have a unique code will depend on how many shirts you have. So this is where, in computing, you're constantly running up against numbers like 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. I'm really bad at math, I can't go beyond that. But that's why you keep coming up against those numbers. Those are the powers of n. Okay? So how many bits would we need to give each student in a class of 25 a unique code? We saw that 4 bits was enough for 16. 5 bits would be enough for 32. Because 2 to the power of 5 is 32. So we could have 32 different 5-bit sequences. So that's enough for 25. To give each student in a class of 40 a unique code, how many would we need? Well, 5 would give us 32, so that's not enough. 6 bits would give us up to 64. So we'd have enough in that. To represent the day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there's how many days? 7 days. How many bits would you need? 3. Because with 3 bits you could have 8 days. So if God was a computer scientist, he would have rested on the 8th day, probably. Okay? Or the 0th day, actually. There would be no 8th day. We'd just start on day 0 and go to day 7. To represent the days of the month, the day of the month, what's the maximum number of the day of the month would be? It goes as high as 31, doesn't it? So we'd only need how many bits? 5, isn't it? Because 4 would get us to 16, 5 bits would get us to 32. We'd have a day spare. In general, computer memory is organized into groups of 8 bits. So 8 bits is 1 byte, 16 bits is 2 bytes, 32 bits is 4 bytes, yeah. So much in the same way as beer comes in packs of 6, computer memory comes in packs of 8, just the way it's manufactured. A kilobyte then is 1024 bytes, not 1,000 bytes, as you might think. So sometimes that's how you get caught sometimes. So if you divide the number of bytes by 1,000, you get a rough approximation of the number of kilobytes. It's actually 1,024. I'm always waiting for my mobile phone company to get that wrong so I can phone them up and give them the bollocking, but actually they work it out right. So 2048 bytes is 2K. So how many possible different things could you represent with 1 byte? That's 8 bits. Two to the power of 8. Any takers? 256. So you can have 256 possible different things with 8 bits. With 16 bits, it's 2 to the power of 16, which is 65,000 or something. Does anyone know off the top of their head? Something up there. Someone work it out there? Multiply 256 by 256 is the quickest way. What is it? 60 odd, something 65,000 or something like that. With 24 bits, you get up to about 16 million, I think. Sometimes you might see on a graphics display, you might see 24-bit color and 16 million colors. We're going to look, for example, at how you represent color using bits. It's something we're going to look at in this module. So a sequence of bits doesn't mean anything by itself. That's really, really important. The meaning of the sequence of bits comes from our interpretation of it. So we might have an agreement with someone, you know, if I have a sock on the door, that means one thing. You know, if there's no sock on the door, that means something else. We have 1 bit there, but its meaning comes from the agreement I've made with someone about it. Over the years, different systems have been developed to store text, and of late, images and sound and video, all using bits. So digital television sends bits, and that turns into the TV program you're watching. Digital audio is a sequence of bits. We take music, we figure out a way to represent it using bits, and then you can turn that back into sound. And so these systems are what this module is about. So the mechanisms we use for doing that, and then we're going to spend a lot of time also on the systems we use for reducing the number of bits that you need to send. So we call that compression. So compression is where you take the number of bits something might naturally take to store, and you decide, well, that's way too much, I'm going to reduce that. And there are ways that you reduce the number of bits without damaging the content so much. Now, will you watch the time for me there? So, we can represent numbers using bits. And this was on the video that I asked you to go look at. And so with a binary number system, what we do is it's a positional system of notation. So the position of the value tells you something about how much it's worth. In decimal, when we're writing, the rightmost digit is the number of ones. The next one is the number of tens. The next one over is the number of hundreds. So 275 would be 275. In the binary system, the rightmost bit represents 1. If that value is 0, then it's 0. If the value of the bit is 1, then it contributes 1 to the total. The next significant bit is representing 2. If that has a value of 1 in the bit, it's worth 2. If it has a value of 0, it's worth nothing. The next one over is worth 4. The next one over is worth 8, and so on like that. So each bit corresponds to a value. So if we have 101001, then the number this represents is going to be 32 plus 8 plus 1. So the zeros don't contribute anything. Wherever there's a 1, that's going to be part of that value. So here, there's a 1 here, so that's worth 32. There's a 1 here, so that's worth 8. There's a 1 here, so that's worth 1. This is 32 plus 8 plus 1. So this shouldn't be a surprise to you now if you went to look to that video I asked you to go look at. Here we have 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. So that's 16 plus 4 plus 2, which is 22. Zero, 0, 0, 0, 0, that's just, well, 0. And 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, it's 32 plus 16 plus 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1, which gives you 63. Although any computery person would have told you if you have 6 bits in the raw 1, the answer is going to be 64 minus 1. Now, so I want you to figure out what each of these values is.